Today we're looking at Diamine's Prussian Blue. Hi, I'm Adam and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now Diamine's Prussian Blue is a blue ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples, I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Pierre Cardin President with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now before we get to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography. And I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this is a dark blue that's pushing its way immediately up, but it's not fleeing the water entirely. It's leaving a lot of that dark blue behind. It gathers at the top, but then we see this very bright highlighter blue across the top. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And largely it looks the same with one glaring exception. That dark blue across the bottom is very there. It's into that filter paper with only 10 minutes to get in. Makes me feel that there might be a little bit of resistance to this ink. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. Now I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles it fairly well. That extra fine does blow up to be about a medium, but it is completely legible and it's not blown out, which would make me feel safe using it in a note-taking situation. Now the reaction to the highlighter I am a little surprised at when we look at the water. Water had almost no effect. It lifted the darkest tone but left everything else. When I said there might be some hold on with this ink, it looks like there is. Pen flesh did everything that water did and a little more. A little more. We see the hopes of the white of the paper coming through, but we're not seeing the white of the paper. And it's not getting enough off it that we start to see the dots of this Rhodia dot pad. I'm not sure that pen flesh is going to get it all out of there, but I'm hoping. And I didn't have to use anything more than pen flesh. But if it's in your pen for a very long time, you might need something a little stronger. The 1/3 bleach solution completely removed it from the page. So if you were to need something a little stronger than the pen flesh, which at least you can soak it in, the 1/3 bleach solution will get it out. That is only 30 seconds. That means you can put this through your pen and immediately get it out of the way and then clean that pen with water to get all the bleach out. But I believe that soaking it in pen flesh is all that's going to be needed, just looking at what 30 seconds did. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at a Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen. It has spots of shading, like in the P in Prussian. It's a little darker on the top of the loop. The N is a little darker than the A. The E in Diamine is a little darker than the N, and the E in blue is a little darker than the U. So we get some shading spots, which are pretty nice. The extra fine gives us the same tones that we got with the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen. Again, we get spots of shading throughout, like the H in the is darker, the K in quick, the B in brown, X in fox, the E in over. We get darker letters throughout, and it really helps this ink stand out nicely on the page. 14 seconds to dry. Medium has the exact same tone that we saw with the extra fine. The medium has no feather, spread, halo sheen, same spots of shading that we saw before, like the K in quick, the X in fox, the Z in lazy, the H in the, R in over. We get spots of it being darker, and it is very nice to look at when it's doing that. 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby of both shows plenty of color variation, and we saw plenty of color variation. And a smear test you could likely recover if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding, we get ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the exact same tone that we're seeing with the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. 21 seconds to dry. The medium is the exact same tone that we saw with the extra fine and the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. 26 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show it's no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it, and the smear test, you couldn't recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Now the Tomoe River brings out a dusty quality of this ink and it's drying. It's like a dusty blue here, for whatever that's worth. We see it in a few other writing samples. I'm just not going to make a big deal of it. The Rhodia, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade comes through in the 1.1. The extra fine has the same tone that we see with the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen. It has spots of shading like the P in jumps, K in quick, R in over. We see letters throughout that are darker and noticeably darker. It's 16 seconds to dry. The medium, same tone as the extra fine. Medium has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. 19 seconds to dry. It got lost for it being a little bit darker, or not a little darker, a little wetter pen. It got to level it out some. The scrubby for the extra fine shows some color variation. We got color variation. The scrubby of the medium showed us none. We didn't get any. In the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Yellow Rhodia has no bleeding and no ghosting. I want to see what the tone change happens for the yellow background. And we do see a significant tone change. It goes from being a blue to a green, because yellow and blue makes green. It makes a very nice turquoise color here. It's a turquoise leaning green. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a slightly lighter tone with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading comes through. 16 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the 1.1, which is a little darker than the extra fine. No feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 19 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows us a little color variation, but we didn't see it. And the scrubby of the medium shows us none, and we got none. The smear test, you could definitely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Limon paper, unfortunately, doesn't do well with very many inks at all. We get a lot of bleed spots. It does not come all the way through. It does not touch the page on the back. Depending on what you're doing, you might be able to use the back of the page. I would not use the back of the page. The 1.1, it's a very dull here, but that's happened quite a bit with this. The 1.1 has spread, it has feathering, it's gross all over the feathering. No halo sheen and no shade. The extra fine is a lighter tone than the 1.1. It has no spread but feathering all over it. Tiny feathering makes things like the middle of brown looks blurry. The word jumps looks blurry. It takes 9 seconds to dry. I'm sorry, no halo sheen or shade, takes 9 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the 1.1. The medium has spread, has feathering, has no halo, no sheen, no shade. It's gross. Don't use it on this paper. The extra fine and the medium scrubby both show no color variation. We didn't expect it. We didn't get it. The smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. Gilelo, it's a gray toned paper. It's laid paper. It's very nice paper. It's just hard to match a nice ink to it. It has no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. It looks very dull here. The extra fine is the same tone that we get with the 1.1. It's the same exact tone. It looks a little lighter on camera, and I think it's just that the the thinner letters. The extra fine has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. This is really an kind of color on this paper. The medium is a slightly darker tone. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. It took 12 seconds to dry, and the scrubby of the extra fine and the medium showed no color variation. We didn't expect it. We didn't get it. And as far as the smear test, I do not believe you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. That is all that I have for the writing sample. Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine's Prussian Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice red. I chose Colorverse Sea Europa. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Diamine's Prussian Blue? The tone of the ink can be changed depending on the nib and flow that you use. Broader, wetter pens, you get a much darker tone than you do with much finer, drier pens, even much finer, wetter pens. Although if you had a gusher of a fine or extra fine, I'm sure it would come through quite dark. Now, this is a dusty blue, which is not my preference in inks. Generally, I don't prefer dusty inks, but that does not disqualify it from being a good ink. It performs well, it writes well, it's easy to read on the page, it's not murder to clean out of your pen. I don't know. Writerly Witterlings, he seems to think that this is one of his favorite inks. I can agree this is a nice blue, but dusty blues are not for me. Thanks for watching.